Hello everybody, welcome once again to the world where we live. Apologies for this rather foreboding lighting. We are very foreboding people at times, so hopefully it suits our character. Now, this is a story that I'm still reading on my smartphone off camera now, as it's the first time I've been able to get around to reading it. It happened 7 days ago, this horrible incident up in Northland Regional Corrections Facility, or Northland Prison as most people call it, whereby a guard was beaten and seriously injured by a prisoner, fractures to his nose and jaw, and the comments from President Alan Whiteley of the Corrections Association, he has said that this problem that we face with corrections officers being assaulted on the job is widespread. It's absolutely out of control. The official line from the Department of Corrections is for zero tolerance. However, he knew of a particular prisoner at Northland Prison who has been involved in 30 assaults on the guards, on the correction staff, and had never been convicted. This is mind-blowing to hear about, and I am absolutely appalled. So, what do we have to say about that?
30 assaults. 30 assaults. Don't they have surveillance cameras?
Well, they do. He hasn't been convicted, and here's the problem. When the prisoners, and 75% of prisoners who are locked up at the moment have histories of violence, when they can assault the correction staff and the guards and just get away with it and not have any additional time put on their sentence or any meaningful repercussions, why on earth wouldn't they? There's no deterrent there.
Quite literally, there is absolutely no deterrent, and that's a lot of cases and in a lot of circumstances. That is a lot of the time. And why aren't there any deterrents? Why aren't we treating these prisoners like prisoners?
Well, I think it comes back to, and this originally came out about 6 months ago. I remember it was around the time of lockdown because we said something about it during the early podcasts. But what it was a memo that went out to the Department of Corrections, and it was talking about basically being nicer to prisoners. They suggested things like calling them by their first name out of respect, talking to them in Te Reo Maori and things like that. And immediately, I actually happen to know a couple of people who work with the Department of Corrections. They are not prison guards, but they are in the industry. And one of them, he's been there about 30 years, and he thought it was absolutely ludicrous. He was saying, look, you've got murderers, rapists, street thugs, gang members here. You're not going to suddenly get them to change their ways and think, oh, you know, I've learned my lesson and no mistake, I'm not going to do that again, because you're calling them by their first name. Kindness is not appropriate with these people because they will not respond to it in a way that normal people like you and me would.
I agree. These are people in special sort of circumstances because they have obviously done something to be in prison, breached one of our many, many, many legislative rules about what is and is not acceptable behaviour, which that's another podcast by itself.
75% involving violence as well.
That's really what prisons are for, though, isn't it? It's to keep violent offenders away from the rest of society. But how do you now go and treat these violent offenders? You're going to be nice to them all the time? You're going to talk to them like they're sort of normal people, but they're obviously not. Because if they were normal people, they wouldn't be in prison in the first place. Is that not a reasonable assumption to make?
And of course, and those latest guidelines they advertise it as kindness and compassion, being kind to the prisoners. However, it's not being so kind to the corrections officers who are now incapable of seeing these horrific acts against them be responded to with any meaningful punishment.
That's a really good point.
And if it's saying, well, we're too respectful of prisoners, we have to be so kind to them that we're not going to punish them when they absolutely deserve it, then That isn't kindness. That's just obscene. I don't know what it is. It's ignorance, and it's deliberately looking the other way and thinking.
Is this taking compassion too far?
Exactly. Certainly it is.
Right. Right. So that's really the point that it comes down to. So a lot of these people that end up in prison, they're there for violating other people's property rights. They're in prison for a good reason. They've hurt somebody, they've damaged somebody's property, they've caused somebody some kind of harm at some point. That's where most of our crimes come from in the first place. And now we're putting these people in prison, and they're turning around and committing more property damage. And what are we doing about that?
Well, not a great deal to stop it. Basically, it's, as a society, we've gone soft. We know that. And look, in a lot of ways, this isn't necessarily a bad thing. When you look at, we are both fans of corporal punishment in schools, to a certain degree. Yet there are an enormous number of stories of teachers being absolute thugs and overzealous with that.
Agreed.
We don't want prisons to go back to what we saw in films like The Shawshank Redemption or Escape from Alcatraz or anything like that. There has to be some level of accountability and some level of restraint. But on the other hand, we don't want to go completely the other way, whereas people are getting away with, not getting away with murder, but getting away with acts that very well could lead to murder.
I think the point there is there has to be a very clear causal connection between the act that you commit and the punishment that is in relation to that act. And I think what we've lost in society in general, in schools and prisons, everywhere in society in general, is that causal connection between what you're doing, your actions and the consequences, what I'm trying to say. Between your actions and your consequences. Every action has consequences. So, given a certain set of rules and values that we should in general hold together as a society, in general, there are going to be differences. If I take action A, what is the general consequence of that action? And I think there's a disconnect there now. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely, I would.
Right.
The thing that really rubs me up the wrong way is that and I remember when it came out, when they were talking about these new guidelines for corrections officers, they were saying it was start of a revolution. Oh, they love their buzzwords, don't they? This revolution of how we treat people, and it's all going to be better, and we will all have beer and pizza and rainbows and unicorns and all the good things in life. And really what all of this advertising is, and I notice when you watch stories like this on the news, let's interview a corrections officer, and they get someone who's very young, early 20s, very little experience in the field, next to no experience, but they like having younger people in front of the camera now because it shows the youth movement.
Because younger people are pretty.
And they're good looking, exactly. Naturally, the looks depreciate
marketing
all the time. And it's marketing. I don't give a damn what a 20-year-old corrections officer who's only been on the job for several months and is full of unbridled optimism about what the future holds for them has to say about this. I want you to find the most decrepit boomer who's been working that job for 30 plus years and knows a thing or two about the industry. I want to hear what he has to say about it. I've gotten those sorts of anecdotes, those sorts of opinions from people I know, but they're not in front of the camera. They're not able to tell their story.
So does that mean we just have to get some pretty people now and then make sure they last 40 years through the correction facility so they can do marketing?
Go back to them in 20 years' time.
Send the corrections officers to the gym and then they'll be pretty.
Go back to them 20 years' time if they're still in the industry and ask them what they feel then. We all become cynics.
Good luck. Good luck finding them in 20 years' time.
They won't
be there. Corrections is a terrible job. Most people don't want to do that for good reason. You have to look after the dregs of society all the time. It must be soul-crushing to have to do that.
And thank you very much, all of the correction staff out there and the prison guards who do that job to keep the rest of us safe.
Somebody has to do it.
Absolutely. And look, I mean, you see the advertisements and for new prison staff, and they say how much of a wonderful, dynamic teams and individuals and all of that newspeak and everything like that. But yeah, at the end of the day, the reality of it is it's very tough. And hey, best wishes to you all.
What I would kind of like to see in that sort of respect, just sort of to close up this one quick segment, is find the biggest dudes you can possibly find that are involved in all this gang related crime in the first place. Educate those people to be the corrections officers, so that when these events happen, who are you having a go at? Steve. Steve is 6'8", and he's 300 kgs of solid muscle. Do you want to screw with Steve?
Well, if there's one thing we don't know about bullies is they don't like to pick on people their own size, do they?
No, of course they don't.
Topic number 2, and a little bit less serious. Well, actually, no, it isn't. It's even more serious. It's certainly more consequential. But the Labour Party and the Green Party seem to be close to an accord.
Why, Jacinda? Why?
If we can believe that. I mean, that's coming from a lot of the Green Party members themselves. They would say anything to the camera and keep the happy faces going, even if the news was very dire indeed. But is it even necessary?
No, it's absolutely not necessary, and I think the worst thing Jacinda could do right now is form a coalition with the Greens Party. What she should actually do is get rid of the Greens Party entirely and make her own government. She's already got the majority in the government. Everybody in New Zealand has voted in favour of her. Not me, and not Jared, but everybody else. You've got a majority, Jacinda. Do your own thing. You're okay. Don't worry about it. You don't need to make this coalition. Just get rid of the Greens and put them all into Labour voters.
But that wouldn't be being kind to the
Define
Greens.
kind.
Well, of course, it's really just a marketing slogan in this case. But really, it's a balance between, are you likely to pick up any more supporters?
Yes.
And a net gain of supporters if you go with the Greens, or are you going to put off so many people who voted Labour because they're not that radical?
Absolutely.
A
lot of people did vote Labour specifically to keep the Greens out of government. You're doing... Where's the party that did that last time around? New Zealand First. You're doing a New Zealand First now, Jacinda, and there's a 100% chance that you'll never watch this podcast. But you should hire me as your political investor because I know how to do these things. Anyway, that's not really the point.
Better move fast, Jacinda, before the ACT Party grab
Very
them.
expensive. Anyway, the point is, you should govern alone. You legitimately have the first mandate ever in MMP history to govern alone. Do it. You'll prove my point. But do it anyway.
She'll bring in the Maori Party just like John Key did. The end of the day, that's 470-odd thousand registered on the Maori electoral roll. So, look, any amount of that support she can get. So, that'll happen. I don't see... And, look, John Key did that because he felt it was the right thing to do. And he genuinely wanted to give more representation. Good on him. It worked. It certainly helped when Bill English ran in 2017.
I believe the same thing about Jacinda, though. I believe she genuinely does care about the New Zealand environment. I believe she genuinely does want to try and help as much as possible. I believe she's completely misguided in the way that she's doing that, but I believe that she believes that at the very least.
I've said it before, and I'll say it once again, and many, many other people have said it at the same time. The Greens have even admitted this begrudgingly themselves. Not many people hate the environment. Not many people are against preserving the environment. You'd have to be a complete wacko to be thinking that we shouldn't dispose of the trash and recycle and reduce, reuse, recycle as much as we can. However, they are not going to stand with some social justice warrior telling them what to say or how to think, or that they can't smack their children, or what light bulbs or low pressure shower head fittings they need to use. And for that reason, if Labour decide to bring those SJWs into office and give them appointments that they are completely unqualified for, as if they were throwing out a whole bunch of lollies for them, she will probably lose an enormous amount of supports from the moderates who
actually voted for you, Jacinda. They voted for you.
Who ordinarily were voted for National, but were completely nonplussed by the turbulent...
Labour light.
Exactly, and also the turbulent, constant turnover of leaders they had. Bridges to Mueller to Collins within
And
8 months.
there's definitely going to be another one. I actually went to the Beachlands event with Judith Collins and the Labour candidate for that area, whose name I don't remember off the top of my head. And she got booed for her comments that Judith Collins was going to get rolled. Totally going to happen though. I hate that she's proven right, but she is going to be proven right. Christopher Luxon, you're up next, mate. Don't screw this one up, otherwise Ack's going to take your seat.
Fair enough. Well, maybe we won't be so mad about that after all.
So, well, I wouldn't want to run against you, Christopher, because you're bloody good and I quite like you, but I will if I have to.
Okay, elections. We like talking about elections, don't we?
Dude, it's
Well,
fun.
It's one of those electoral leap years where every 12 years the New Zealand and the US elections occur within months of each other, 1 month of each other. So, our thoughts on the American election. From what I can tell, unless you get your polls and analysis from Tim Pool, most of, and me sometimes, but most polls have Biden ahead by not a normal polling error, as Clinton was ahead of Trump by.
You don't reckon?
But by a wider margin than that.
Oh, no, we've been looking at different polls.
We certainly have. You've been looking at Tim's polls once again.
Yeah, I trust Tim. He's got a very good predictive model He's usually right on most things. Not always, usually. And he does use NewsGuard, which is a sort of left-wing biased news verification service. So he does get a bit of conflicting information, and a little bit recently he's sort of gone a little bit more towards that right-hand side of things, but only because he's distraught by what is happening in America at the moment, and the fact that Nancy Pelosi will not sign the COVID relief bill at all. She won't take yes for an answer. The Republicans have come to the table on that. They've given her almost everything she wants. She will not sign it. Just watch the content that I'm putting out there.
Well, there are certainly ulterior motives behind it. This is politics. At the end of the day, grown women act like children when it comes to politics. And realistically, there were, as Trump pointed out in one of the debates, there were plans to end lockdowns, 2 days after Election Day, after everybody's voted. It's absolutely ridiculous, and really, I don't know which way it's going to go. I'm not unduly concerned either way, even if Biden gets in and the Democrats take over and they enact all their radical policies, all they will do is elicit such a massive backlash like the one that Obama built up that got Trump elected in the first place.
Nah, dude, if the Democrats get elected this time, Western civilization as we know it is over. The Democrats, absolutely, 100%. They will change the rules. If the Biden gets elected now, they will change the rules so that no Republican can ever get inaugurated ever again.
How would they go about doing that?
They're already doing it now. They're trying to make all mail-in voting, which they've now backed off because they're seeing it's actually biasing in favor of the Republicans. But they're trying to change the rules of elections right now. If you follow my content, if you follow Tim Pool's content on YouTube or BitChute, which is now my preferred provider, you will see how the Democrats are trying to change the way that elections are conducted. And the reason why they're doing that is because they won the popular vote for Hillary Clinton in 2016. But Trump still got elected because they went to college. They are literally trying to remove the Constitution of the United States, which is the most libertarian document that exists in the world at the moment. and replace it with only a way that the popular vote can win, which is where all the people in the cities congregate and all vote for Democrats. Why? Because they don't do anything. They are meaningless paper pushers.
Well, certainly, but look at the exodus of people going out of California and trying to leave because of those stupid
How many people is
anti-business. I don't know the actual statistics.
Like Ben Shapiro, Joe
Figures.
Rogan.
Plenty of others.
Right, yeah, but dude, those are
Bus-
5 people.
There's business owners,
Okay, so
small
everybody-
business owners who are now sort of basically forced at gunpoint to do these.
You reckon though? But those people, so Ben Shapiro, for example, has taken 30 to 40 staff with him to Nashville in Tennessee. Good on you, Ben Shapiro. Well done. Joe Rogan's taken a few people with him as well. But those people are outnumbered 100 to 1
The
by the
more
homeless.
the more radical policies and agenda they push, the more people will leave, because it will make it, in the interests of socialism, it will make it impossible to do
True.
business.
True. The more people will leave, but there's more people in those lower tiers than there are at those upper tiers. So what you get is an exodus of the rich. You get an exodus of the 1%, the people who are paying for all those services, paying all the tax, providing all the service in the first place, doing all the work. The people that you get remaining are the people that are not contributing to society.
And when people don't pay for it, and there's too many people drawing the dole and it can't be subsidised,
Then they
it'll all
move
fall
to
down,
Texas.
and then they will see what a horror show it's all become.
No, they won't. No, they won't. They will exodus to other countries. We've seen this time and time again. People exiting the Soviet Union, people exiting Cuba, people exiting Venezuela. They're all trying to get into Western civilized democracies. Why? Because those systems work. They reward work, they reward effort, they reward hard work and investment in yourself and in your capital. But then you get more and more people leeching off the system. Get more and more people, but that number of people is 1,000 times greater than the people that are doing the production in the first place.
And if they get radical enough, John, they will actually quite literally start a civil war, and then the Electoral College and popular vote giving all the power to the Democrats will be completely irrelevant. So either way, it will cancel itself out. You push too far in one direction, you elicit a backlash to the other direction, and really, whether in 4 years' time if Biden wins, whether that's the Republicans resurging or whether it's even a libertarian or independent candidate, maybe if John Stossel ran for president, I really don't know.
Rand Paul.
It's always a possibility, and I don't think it's the end of the world. They'll tank the economy, there'll be no more money to pay for any welfare, you can bet yourself.
The last time this happened was World War II. This is exactly what happened in World War II. The communists did exactly the stuff in Nazi Germany when it started. The fascists are a response to the communists. This happens again and again and again and again and again, and we never seem to learn. Do not let the communists and socialists get out of control. Communism is a path to socialism, that's it. And what are communists? Lying fascists. That's all they are.
And nobody thought it would happen again.
And it's going to happen again. If Biden gets elected, the communists win, and literally, as Jared has just said right now, the backlash to that is going to be fascists. And fascists suck ass as much as communists do. Fuck both of them. I'm done with this crap. Everybody needs to become more libertarian and accept that other people have different views from them and stop screwing about. Because how do you end the entire earth? You get the fascists fighting the communists.
And Johnny comes marching home.
And that's how you get the Fallout universe.
Wow. That'd be fun.
No, it wouldn't be. It'd be bloody awful.
We'll see you next week for much more discussion on that topic, the United States election.
Damn yeah, we are hosting an election party for that stuff on Wednesday next week. And there's going to be some kind of live streaming. We haven't quite worked out how it's going to work yet, but I'll sort that out between now and then.
My greatest regret, well, one of them, one of many of them, was that I didn't bet on the outcome of the 2016 election in America. I was driving home one night before before election night, and it was pouring down with rain, and I went past the TAB, and I thought, shall I go in there and put, it was either $150 or $350 on Trump to win the election. They were paying something ridiculous. I think it was $6.55. And I didn't do it. But this time I will. I will vote on the United States election. I think I'll vote on Trump to win by a very narrow margin and also to lose the popular vote but get re-elected, just like last time when he got elected. And you should too. skybets.com.au. The Australians got it, we don't.
I don't really...
Goes to show their much better ties with America that can date right back to the ANZUS Treaty of the 1970s and them allowing nuclear testing by the Americans. Thanks,
No,
David
no
Longy.
flavour. But thank you very much for joining us, and please do join us next week. I'm going to try and do some kind of live recording next week, but we'll see how it goes. We're going to watch a few different sort of perspectives. It'll be from a different setting than this, but the US elections being the most important elections, even if we don't get a vote, in the world so far. That's going to determine what the outcome of the next at least 4 years is going to be. It's happening next week on Wednesday between 4 and 8:30 p.m.
We'll see you then.
Take care, guys.
Hopefully.
Stay safe.
Cheers.